So I'm very happy to teach in the school here, and I would like to present what we are doing, what is our pedagogy. And the question I'm asking is, should we credit the pencil too? Um, Maybe I have to start from this dialectic materialist of Karl Marx to explain a little what I'm thinking about that. Um, the dialectic materialist of Karl Marx is the idea of that the infrastructure is creating the idea. So it's not the reverse phenomena, it's not the idea that is creating reality, but it's more the reality that is creating idea. And all the historical materialist of Karl Marx is about the transformation of the material condition through energy, climate, or techniques, will have an impact into the type of society. So it's not the idea of the human that are creating society, but this is the transformation of the infrastructure that is creating a new type of condition for the human to live, and it creates some different type of politics. So it's in a very simple way to explain that. Karl Marx is explaining that slavery cannot be removed without coal and machine. So the idea to abolish slavery can be an idea, but it cannot be happening without fossil energy and without machine of the 19th century. In the same way, Engels say that anthropophagy cannot be abolished without agriculture. So the type of society is becoming, the type of idea that we have is coming from the type of the material condition of the infrastructure that we have. So so from that, if we think about design and what type of design we can do, maybe this is not only about idea that we can have, but it can be also related to the infrastructure, the material condition. And depending of the type of material condition we will have a certain type of design and certain type of form, and also certain type of poetry or some aesthetic idea. So this was and so the idea of Karl Marx is that if we change society, if we want to change the society, we have to change the infrastructure. We don't have to change the idea. We have to go down to the earth and change the material condition, and from that it will change the idea. And then if we came a little later, when the fossil energy arrived in the 19th century and in the 20th century, so it's created a new superstructure, infrastructure that was quite strong, because the question of food and energy was solved by the material condition, by the fossil energy. And so we start to think that we can now maybe change the idea inside the superstructure and change the aesthetic inside the superstructure. Then it became quite strong later. So in a certain way, we forget the infrastructure, we forget the fossil energy, we forget maybe the antibiotic during the 20th century. And at that moment, we start to think that superstructure is also involving and taking part of the infrastructure. So it means that all the world now is becoming like production of ID, and the ID will transform everything from that. And then we have this ecological crisis, and that creates some disorder in the infrastructure. So the fossil energy infrastructure of the 20th century, it was in a certain way challenged by global warming and maybe by the COVID-19 pandemic. And we start to understand that our idea is not only coming from us, but it's also coming from the material condition that we have in the, and depending of that, it creates a different type of society. So in the pedagogy we have at the end, we start to say that maybe the idea of the project is not coming only from the student or only from us as designer, but maybe the material condition is also part of the design, and maybe it's becoming stronger, and it's a real author of the project, and the way we are designing is also a consequence of the material condition. So this is a syllabus, and if I show some example, you know, if you have, depending of, you can start with a representation element, and then with a material element, and then with a condition element, and so it's depending of what type of tools you will use. Some different type of project will be made. For example, if you have just a pencil, so you will do a certain type of drawing because you are limited by the pencil. Or if you have a computer, a 3D software, you will do another type of project. And so sometimes we think that there is some humans that are very creative, but we can say maybe this is the pencil that is creative and create this type of form, or this is a computer that is creating this type of form. So if we look in the history of the aesthetic, we can see that depending of the type of material condition, the aesthetic is changing. For example, with a stone, you can create maybe one type of building. With steel and concrete, you will build another type of building very high, like skyscraper. Or with 3D software, you can create some bubble, and you can create some blob architecture. So if we think in the without that, you know, we can say why we didn't build Bilbao Guggenheim Museum in the 19th century or in the Middle Age. So maybe the human were the same, but the tools were not the same. So in a certain way, maybe the human are there, but they are not the only one that are part of the design. Maybe the representation tools is also part of the design in a very strong way. In the same way, if we think about material, you know, if you have to do some structure with different type of material, if you are using brick, so you have to create certain form of with a brick to elevate the form, and it creates some arch or vault or wall with a certain condition. If you are building in steel, of course, you can do some other type of things. So, and we can have some example here. We have some example of concrete. So you can do this type of form. And then we have the example of the plastic, you know, that came from oil, and from also type of molding the design, and so it creates some a very typical form of the 50s. So we can say that this type of design from the 50s or 60s, it was driven by oil and driven by the technique to mold the plastic, and maybe by human, but in a certain way, maybe it comes also from oil in a very strong way. So if we want to be creative, maybe we don't have to only think on ID and thinks about form from an ideologic point of view, but we have to come back to the material condition and to understand what are the material conditions from one moment, and then from that it will create some aesthetic that came from that. So this is what we did during this semester. It was, we can see, so one student start to receive, he can do a project only with a pencil. Another one can do with pencil and ruler. Another one can do a project with computer 2D. Another one with computer 3D. Another one with Midjourney. Another one with Photoshop, or another one with Beam. So only by using that, it will create different type of aesthetic that are coming from that. And then we move to different type of construction materials. So, okay, you can build only with metal, or you can build only with wood. And so different form will also come from that. And you understand as a human that maybe your imagination is not only free from your design choice, but it's also a result from the material condition that you are using. And then we think about the energy that we have. So it can be only the energy of the human. So you have to take the brick by yourself, or it can be by a crane, or it can be by animals, like in the Middle Age. So it means that depending on the quantity of energy, also the type of construction and type of form will be different. And then we move to also to the commodity, if we want to, or to cool or to warm the space, and depending of the type of material condition, you have different quality. So from that, this is, for example, someone working with, it was with Illustrator. So it was how he can start to design form by using Illustrator. And the type of drawing was driven by the technique, and so it's creating a certain aesthetic, and then you have to continue with this type of things. This is just some images of, okay, you are using brick, you understand that brick should be overlap on each other, so this is how you can make a form by doing that, so it's completely different than wood or steel. And then this is also something about if you introduce the question of climate and how you can you can decide by using different type of energy resources, or it can change the type of project. And this one was about the use of different type of material, different material condition that were creating different type of form coming from that. So this is some example of the project that came at the end. So in reality, the constraint was really strong, but in a certain way, it is always like that. So we are working in a certain material condition, and the result is coming from our imagination, but it's also coming from the material condition, from the energy condition. Now I would like to present another project we made. We can say that in the continuity of that, maybe the climate is becoming the driving force of the project, and the global warming and the heat wave in Geneva. And so what we have proposed here is to think about the reverse of the palm house of the 19th century. You have this idea of building a warm climate in a cold climate. And today, maybe we arrive to something at the opposite. With the heat wave, it's becoming too hot, so we want to create cold climate in the warm climate. So the proposition was to look to all the different possibilities to build a cold climate, in Geneva. So what we did for that is to work on all the different physical exchange between one object and another one. So it's, if the way of losing heat for the human body is made by convection, by conduction, by evaporation, by emissivity, thermal effusivity. So each student start to analyze one way of losing heat through these different phenomena, and then to add inside the construction of the pavilion, to add a way of cooling it. So how it's work? First, we know that the hot air is more light than the cold air. So we make a hole at the top of the space to let the hot air moving out. And then we want to bring cold air, so we go to the underground, and the underground temperature is always 15 degrees or 12 degrees Celsius in Geneva. So by taking the air, it can be cooled down. And then we go with the pavilion down to the underground to find this low temperature in the underground, like at 2 meters underground. So we can find this 12, 13 degrees Celsius. And this is where we propose to have some Edelweiss, because the Edelweiss can maybe no more survive in Switzerland because it will be too hot. So the symbol of Switzerland will move more to Germany, to Norway, and this is where you will find some Edelweiss in the future. So if we want to have Edelweiss in Switzerland, so in a certain way we have to create this Edelweiss house. And then from that, we choose some material for the light. So the heat, the light is bringing a lot of heat. So we have, because 50% of the heat is inside the visible, 50% is inside the infrared. So first we block the infrared by having a low E coating on the south part of the pavilion. And then each wavelength of the visible light have a certain quantity of energy. So we know that photosynthesis, the plant only need red and blue. They don't need green. It's why the plants are green, because they are reflecting the green, so they don't need this green wavelength. So we remove the green wavelength, so we can remove a certain quantity of energy. And so we choose the color according to that, and then we place the red down because the sun is lower in the late afternoon, and it's higher at noon. So the student place a different color according to the angle of the sun. And then the choice of the material inside the pavilion was made by thermal effusivity. So it means it's a material, when you touch it, the transfer of heat between the body and the material is very fast, so you can cool yourself also with that. And also the color was white for reflecting also the heat of that. And then I will finish with this book. So I have made with the Ed and with Julie and Javier. So it was a big change for publishing this book. I think it's quite successful. So I'm really happy, and I have to say that I will be one of the curators for the next Biennale in Saint-Étienne, for the Design Biennale. And since the book was published, a lot of young designers and students of school, especially in France, are working on ideas coming from this book. So they also won some prize of design with this type of idea. So and it is an open book, so you can download for free, and everything is free at the end. So you can copy and take the idea of this book and make some new idea and make prototype and make project with that. And so we will have 15 young designers in Saint-Etienne that are already use some idea of that will be present for the Biennale. So I'm really happy with that book. So I think this idea of manifest book is a great initiative, and I think the quality of a school is to make pedagogy and also to make projects like that, and it's a very good point of the head. So thank you.